All right, thanks for joining me today. I'm going to go over the five most popular reasons that people decide to sell their real estate. I call them the 5 Ds. I did learn this from a team leader that I previously worked for, and proves to be true. So, first of all, let's assign the 5 Ds, right? You've got death, divorce, destitute, displacement, and dependence. Now, let's dive into each one of them. All right, when somebody dies, especially when they're holding Southern California real estate here in San Diego, but nationwide, it's a pretty uniform response here. When somebody passes away, they have multiple heirs. If they have multiple properties, sometimes they'll divvy it out in their will, or their trust will divvy out the properties. These properties belong to these people specifically. But when we have a situation where two or more heirs are inheriting the same property, it's very uncommon that those heirs will agree to do a renovation, keep it as a rental, and put it on for a rental analysis. So it's pretty popular for the heirs of property to end up selling those properties. And we're talking about like maybe 4 out of 5 within the first year. And most of the rest of those, the 1 out of 5 that kept it, will probably sell within 3 or 4 years. So it's hard to follow, like, who is it that's losing family members? Because take my family, for instance. We lost my father in October of 2024. My mother decided that she's going to stay in the property, at least for 1 year. So that year came and went, and now she's renovating the property for herself. So obviously that death did not lead to her sale. So she's part of like 10% of the nation that has a death in the house and ends up keeping the house going forward. Now, when my mom is done using it, what will it become? Will it become a rental property that my brother and I share? Will I buy my brother out? Will my brother buy me out? Or will we put the property on the market and split the proceeds? So as you can see, the more and more people, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 heirs per property, the lower the amount that each person is going to make, but also the lower likelihood is that they're going to keep the property. So if you're approaching a property that is on the market because somebody has passed away, just understand this, that is your that's your opportunity to maybe ask for concessions, and it doesn't really make the heirs back off of your offer. But also understand that over encompassing, before we get into any kind of specifics on any of these things, we should cover this. Every single property sells for the amount that the buyer decides that it's worth, right? And I say the buyer because that's the buyer. All of the people that made offers are not the buyer. Just the one that is chosen by the seller is the buyer. Now, the property is advertised at a certain price, sometimes a really low price, and it's an auction situation, whether it's an auction or just looking for a bidding war. Sometimes they'll put a high price and work the price down. Sometimes they'll put the price right where they think it's going to land. No matter what the scenario is, it's going to go to the highest bidder. Highest and best is what we call it. So maybe, just maybe, it might be a lower price point than what you offered, but that buyer that beat you out with terms. So here we are, veterans, 0 down. We need usually 21 to 45 days for escrow. It's usually 21 to 30, sometimes up to 45. And we need these longer escrows than a cash offer would be 10 days, right? So they might take a 10-day cash offer, and they know that they don't have to do inspections and repairs and so on and so forth. So when you have a death, remember that this person, this family, was probably prioritizing spending their money and their time and their effort to extend the quality of life and extend the life of their loved one. They were not keeping up with the maintenance in most of these scenarios. So you're going to buy a house with deferred maintenance. In a death scenario, you might be able to get the concessions, because if there's 5 heirs and you're asking for $20,000 back, that only affects each one of those heirs by $4,000 instead of one seller by $20,000. So there is some benefits to that scenario, but it is kind of off-putting for anybody to ask the seller, why are you selling? Remember that there's no response to why is the seller selling that a listing agent or a seller can say that would benefit the seller. So fiduciary duty on the listing agent and your own responsibility to yourself, do not answer that question. Just, we don't answer that question. The house is available. This is the asking price. Put in your best offer. The next D is divorce. In a divorce scenario, it's kind of interesting because you have two people who are amicable or fighting. You don't know which way it's going, but a lot of times the house looks like half of the stuff is gone and one of the closets is empty, and maybe even the kids' rooms closets are kind of emptied out, and you realize, oh, okay, this might be one of those divorce scenarios. Sometimes the military wise, the family will move ahead, or the service member will move ahead, and it'll look like it might be a divorce scenario, but it's just that he went on to the displacement, right? The other D, one of the other Ds, he went on or she went on ahead of the family. But anyway, in a divorce scenario, you have two people who are splitting the proceeds. It's kind of in the realm of what we were talking about with the death, where there's multiple heirs. So a $20,000 credit only affects each of the 5 heirs by $4,000. In a divorce scenario, they're pretty much taking half and half in that situation. So understand that asking for $20,000 really only hits their bottom line by $10,000 each. But at the same time, you have these two people who couldn't agree to stay married, and now they have to agree to take your offer. So please, be mindful of that. If you do know that you're making an offer on a house that's from a divorce scenario, I would highly suggest that you kind of put yourself into each one of their shoes and see if your terms and conditions and price would be agreeable to two separate people who are now looking to live separately with their own priorities without taking each other into consideration. And you're just kind of this third wheel that shows up and puts in the offer with the price and terms that are agreeable to you, but might not be agreeable to one of them. And unfortunately, in that scenario, you got to get each of them independently to say yes. Now, as for a listing agent, I just want to cover this real quick in case you're a real estate agent that's looking on. A lot of times in these divorce scenarios, each husband and wife will submit 3 names for listing agents that they like, and then the judge takes all 6. The judge will look at the 6 listing agents, profiles, and look at their websites and look at their track record, and then the judge determines which of the 6 is going to get the job. Okay, so now we're getting into destitute. The next one being destitute. This one is near and dear to my heart. I really, really, really don't like it when people find themselves in a way that they can no longer afford to own the property that they already own. A lot of times this is because of layoffs or an injury at work, and it's not a good day. The sellers are not in a good mood. They don't want to sell. They just have to sell. If you're looking at it in a pre-foreclosure scenario, what you have to take into consideration is that if they're in pre-foreclosure, they've already stopped making their payments. So now you have penalties and fees and dues and all this stuff. So what you see as what they bought for and what they owe might not be super accurate. It might not reflect all of the fees and extra interest that's associated with missing your payments and being late on your payments. They may or may not be working with the bank at that time. But if you do make an offer that's lower than what they're asking, they usually put their asking price in a spot where they're going to break even or maybe even walk away with a little bit. You trying to find the bottom is just making their bad day worse. But at the same time, I get it. You want a bit of a discount on your purchase. But at the same time, I would like for you to put yourself into their shoes and say, hey, if I was in this scenario, wouldn't it be nice if somebody were to just pay me the market rate or the market price? And if you're the only one that shows up at the market price, then of course you can ask for a lower amount. But do not go into any of these 5Ds assuming that you can get it for a lower price because they're in these scenarios. Displacement is the next one. That would be, most popular in the military world, where your tour on the USS Abraham Lincoln is over. So it's now time to go to shore duty, and you're moving to Charleston, you're moving to Jacksonville, so on and so forth. In my opinion, when you're in the military and you bought a property and you're being displaced and you're going to the next place, it's always cheaper to keep her on the property as well, right? So instead of looking forward and saying, hey, let's sell this one and buy something where we're going, I would instead say, hey, let's go ahead and put a renter in this one. And then if there's military housing in the receiving end, take military housing because it's easier. And make sure that you understand what the cost is to break that agreement. And if you're signing on to do 1 year with no penalty, or if there's a penalty to break that lease 3 or 4 months in. But I would suggest that you would put the house that you're leaving for rent with a property manager. And if you need a property manager here in San Diego, let me know and I'll connect you. But the receiving end, you're either going to buy something else, you're going to rent something, or you're going to go into housing at that receiving end. If you can afford to go ahead and buy something else, that would be great because now you have 2 properties that you're going to catch all of the market movement on growing wealth. And also, it's cheaper to keep her. So, what's my 3 rules to buying real estate? 1, only buy what you can afford. 2, make sure that you only buy properties that you're willing to live in. 3, make sure that you love something about the property, because if you don't love something about the property, the pain that comes from maintaining and owning the property will result in you turning into a scenario that you have to overcome the resentment and overcome the bad feelings in order to get to the honeypot, the end of the rainbow, which in my opinion is 20 plus years of ownership of any single property will result in a golden pot at the end of that rainbow. If you can work in that tenants were paying for the property the whole way through or most of the way through, even better, because now other people bought your investments. I mean, you can't convince somebody to buy stock for you. You can't convince somebody to put their earnings into your S&P 500 index fund. You can't have other people putting contributions to your 401k. But what you can do is you can buy property and then rent it to somebody else, and they're going to take their earnings. They're going to go trade their time for money, and they're going to take a lot of that money and give it to you. And then you're going to pay for the ownership of that property. And if there's anything left, then great. If there's nothing left, then at least you're having somebody else pay off this asset for you. And 20 years later, you're going to be super happy that you went through that. So there's pain that you got to love the property, right? So only buy what you can afford. Never buy anything you wouldn't live in. And make sure you love something about the property. The more you love about the property, the better. We're talking about location, neighborhood, neighbors, layout, kitchen, bathrooms, backyard, views, the landscaping, the city. You might just love the city. I just love owning something in San Diego, right? So that might be it. All right. So the last one is dependence. There's 2 ways on this. There's upsizing and there's downsizing, right? When your dependents move out of your house, now you're empty nesting. You might not need a 3,000 square foot single story home with a 3-car garage and all of the storage for everything that's needed for raising children and getting your young adults up out of the house. Now, once those young adults come up out of the house, does it really make sense to stay? Then you got to do your assessment. Should we keep it and rent it, or should we sell it? And if you're going to sell it, you're just moving out of it. So you get your first, as a married couple, your first $500,000 without paying cap gains to the federal cap gains, and the $250,000 for a single individual. Now, the other way is having more children, right? I need to upsize. A lot of times in those scenarios, it does make sense to sell the smaller unit, take the proceeds from the smaller unit, put it as a down payment for the next property, and maybe part of it down and the other part to improve the property, like flooring, paint, fixtures, landscaping, maybe moving, repositioning some of the layout to work better for you and your family. When you're doing stuff that's like that, very personal, very pointed to your needs, I do want you to at least picture, before you pull the trigger on that work, what is this going to look like to the market if I go to put it for rent? And what is it going to look like to the market if I go to put it for sale? Right. All right. So now I'm going to piggyback here. We have new construction. New construction is playing a game right now. It's their normal move. They've been doing it for decades, and they're not real out loud about it, right? They've been hiding behind the curtain this whole time. So let me give you a peek behind the curtain. If I'm a developer and I built 300 homes, and I decided to build those 300 homes when interest rates were 2%, I planned this development in phases. So call it 15 phases, 300 homes. I'm going to sell them in blocks of 20. I'm going to build and sell, build and sell, build and sell, 20, 20, 20, 20, 20, right? So I started my project and I have each phase has to have a certain price, exit price to make sense, right? So if I'm in phase 6 and the interest rates go to 4%, then I have to say, oh, shoot, I hope I don't have to lower my prices. If they go to 6%, oh, darn, it really looks like I'm going to have to lower my prices. When they went to 7, not if, when they went to 7, what did the builders do? They said, hey, we already have this whole thing on lock where we control the financing, we control the build, we control the home warranties. We discourage people from bringing in outside inspectors. We'll sue inspectors for hitting us on stuff that's just normal inspection stuff. Just to remember that you're buying from a sleazeball. Like, these developers are sleazeballs. Their whole business is built around ripping you off when you buy this, right? They bring you into this beautiful upgraded home. It smells good. It looks good. It works well. You buy your home. You don't do all of those upgrades. Doesn't feel so nice. You paid the price, the higher price, based on what they showed you, not what you got, right? So there's hit number 1. Hit number 2, must use your in-house financing. Why? What's the point? What if I have all cash, right? And now you're telling me I have to do this application with this person. I have to do business with this person. And oh yeah, by the way, it's not a shopping thing. It's not like, oh, I'll just go ahead and do my application. Like when you go into a car dealership, even the car dealers are like, hey, we have in-house financing. But if you bring your own financing, that's fine too, right? So the home builders, the home developers, these sleazeballs, in my opinion, they are not giving you, they're not giving us the option to divert over to another lender. If their lender can't get your file done, you don't get the house, right? And here's where they play with the money. When they started off this construction, they planned to sell the properties for $650,000. When they look at the interest rates are now 7, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6. They were 7, right? They said, hey, instead of lowering the price to 600,000, what if, and that would lose us 50 grand from our original plan. What if instead we can take $20,000 and pay it to this in-house lender who's our friend anyway, who's in business with us anyway, and they probably profit share over there anyway. So now they're just like in on all of the everything. And they've just tricked you by saying, hey, we got a 4.99% interest rate for you. We got a 3.99% interest rate for you. Or even worse, the 3-2-1 buy down, the 2-1 buy down, the 1-1 buy down. Like all those are is temporary band-aids so that you can feel like you're making your payment based on a lower interest rate. But the whole time your loan is at that higher interest rate. All they did was make you pay $650, took 20 grand and put it towards your closing costs, which those closing costs then bought down your rate and did all of those things that they needed to do to maintain the 650. Because what are they hoping for? They're hoping for the 7% to become 6%. Hey, look, it did. So now they're just, instead of paying 20 grand to keep that price at 650, now they're only paying 15. And then when it goes to 5%, they're still going to offer this 3.99% interest rate or the 4.99% interest rate. They're just going to cost them less, right? And the whole time, the price is staying the same at that 650. When you look at the resale market, you might be able to go buy a comparable home for $75,000 to $150,000 less than what the new construction costs. And then you start looking into, wait, we all shop for payments here, right? So every new construction pretty much across the country, unless it's a one-off custom home, has HOA fees. Well, a lot of your existing homes don't have HOA fees. So there's another monthly cost that's going to be forever. And by the way, forever growing, because HOAs just only go up. So you can go find a similar house, a comparable house with no HOA and get into that house for much, much cheaper, even though you're paying 6% or 5.75 or 6.25 on your interest rate instead of 3.99, which is their promo rate that they use your money to pay for anyway. You're better off because you get into that same property at 575 that if it was new, you go 650. Now the argument goes, well, what if I'm buying when I'm cash poor, right? I'm a VA buyer. I've been a VA buyer my whole adult life, right? So Do I like to buy properties with zero money out of pocket? Absolutely. Am I comfortable buying old property with zero money in my bank? No. No, because what happens when the refrigerator, when the HVAC, when the roof, when the windows, when the door, when anything goes wrong, you got to pay for it. If you don't have the money to pay for it, you're just being a bad owner, right? And you don't want to get into that situation. So now what do? Oh, well, I guess I'll go with the new construction, because at least with the new construction, everything's new and doesn't need to be replaced for 10, 15, 20 years, right? So just make sure you do your inspections and confirm that that is the case and carry on. So let's recap real quick. Buyers set the price for the market. They set market price. Sellers set asking price. There's a sell that happens when the buyer's price and the seller's price agree and they're both happy to move forward. So here is my discouragement. Do not go out there and make an offer for less than what the seller's next price reduction is going to be. If you feel compelled that the only way you can own this property is to knock it down by 20, 30, 40, 50, $100,000 less than the seller's asking, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your emotions. You're going to get upset. You're going to think you're working with the wrong agent. But in all reality, it's you. You're the problem. So fix yourself. Go find a property that the seller's happy to sell at the price that you're happy to buy. If you cannot find that property, then keep renting. You're obviously happy to trade that money in exchange for those four walls and that ceiling for 30 days. A very significant amount of money. Like if you're paying $2,000 a month, that's $24,000 a year. That's down the toilet, and a toilet that you don't even own. It's the owner's toilet. So get over yourself, get over that. You have to shop what's on the market for the price that's on the market. And when you're looking at those new constructions and they're getting you over to their in-house financing, that's normal. For now, it's not illegal. I think it should become illegal. I think having in-house financing for a new build is completely not necessary anymore, and it just shouldn't exist. And I think that the new build guys need to, instead of paying for your lower rates, which, by the way, when lower rates exist, you can just refinance anyway. So you're only going to pay the higher payment for a few years at most, maybe even just 6 months or 7 months, and then refinance for that lower payment. But if you wait, here's what I'm going to discourage you from doing. Waiting for the interest rates to come down, it's a huge problem. It will cause a huge problem for you, because now when the interest rates come down, all of the existing properties are going to have more than one person show up for that advertised price that the seller is happy to sell it for. And just because the seller is happy to sell it at $575 doesn't mean that he won't sell it for $600, $625, $650 when more than one person shows up. So careful what kind of ground you're planting your flag on. Careful what hill you're willing to die on. Please consider abandoning the hills of, I'm going to wait for interest rates to come down. And the other hill that I want you to abandon is, I'm going to put in offers lower than what the seller is willing to accept. Both of those hills, one is going to cost you $50 to $75 to $100,000 more in just a few months. And the other one is going to cost you big time for the rest of your life. So I hope that this helps you guys frame where you're at. Maybe you're stuck in the mud. If you are, click down below and grab a time on my calendar. You can tell me all about your personal situation. I can ask you a few very pointed questions to make sure that we're on the same page. And then I can send you on your way in a direction that you would be happy to pay what the seller is asking. All right, guys. See you next time.